continuing on with Joy Reid, she decided to have AOC on in order to explain why her voters also possibly voted for Donald Trump. Check it out.
Of all the confounding results in this past election, perhaps the strangest phenomenon was the surprising number of people who voted for Democrats down ballot and then checked off Donald Trump for president. That was the case in New York's 14th district. A number of voters cast their ballot for both Trump and one of the House's most progressive Democrats, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, better known as AOC. And while the Democratic Party is still reeling from the results, Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez is doing something a lot of the D.C. folks aren't doing, which is talking to social media and actually talking to voters to figure out why this happened.
If you voted for Donald Trump and me, or if you voted for Donald Trump and voted Democratic down ballot, I would really love to hear from you. This is not a place of judgment. I'm not gonna like put your stuff on blast or anything like that or dunk on it. That's like genuinely not the intent here. I actually want to learn from you. I want to hear what you were thinking, and I just want to hear from you.
Joining me now is the aforementioned Democratic Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of New York. Okay, AOC, what'd they say?
I mean, there's a lot of different things that we saw. I think there's a lot of people. First of all, it's important to note that Democrats, oftentimes when we lose elections, we think that we lost people to Trump. And that is true in circumstances, but they don't look enough at the fact that we also lost people to the couch. Mm-hmm. We have two people that we're running against. So a lot of people say, this is why I voted for you and Trump. And some people say this is why I didn't vote or didn't vote top of the ticket.
Right. Skip the top of the ticket, which, by the way, there's been a lot of paranoia about the fact that Democrats were able to win statewide in some places while Kamala Harris lost. And I keep trying to tell people there are voters who go in and either just vote the top, Trump voters who will say, I just want Trump and don't care about Republicans, and the reverse, who say, I'm not voting top of the ticket, but I'll vote everybody else.
Right.
It's a lot of people that vote Kamala Harris and they just voted down ballot, and most of those people were uninformed voters and they were ignorant, which was one of the reasons that the strategy in the Republican Party and even my strategy to inform people and arm them with the information, because I think that in most instances, once you know better, you do better. In most instances, once you know better, you do better.
Right. And I think we saw some of that happen as well. But when it comes to people who split their ticket, I think a lot of people cited several different things. One is there is universal frustration in this country, much of it I actually think justified, that is raging at a political establishment that centers corporate interests, billionaires, and puts their needs ahead of the needs of working Americans.
Nope. She got it half right. I was about to give AOC credit, but she got it half right. People are mad at the political establishments and the media companies that continue to spew rhetoric while not being informed on what the real issues are with the American people. And it has nothing to do with being mad at billionaires. If that was the case, then Tesla would not have the #1 selling car in the world in the Model Y. If that was the case, Tesla would not have the #1 selling car in the world in the Model Y. People are not mad at billionaires. People tend to not trip when other people get money when they get money. People are mad that you're sitting there lying to their face and trying to push this rhetoric, men and girl sports, using the bathroom that you want, pushing this stuff on kids, gender affirmation and transformation, and then talking about reproductive rights when they broke at home. The thing that Democrats really don't understand, and y'all need to get Republican strategists. If they were smart, usually what you would do is you would go and you would hire people from the other party to start having a conversation with you about where you missed the mark. People don't usually care about what other people are doing or what rhetoric is being spewed to them as long as they remain in privilege. When you get money, People don't trip about who you having sex with. When you get into the bag and you can do what you want to do and you can travel where you want to travel and you can go to the grocery store without necessarily having to check your account balance when you get to the front of the grocery store, they tend to not really care about what women do with their bodies. They just don't even become aware. But when you broke, trust me, I know. When you broke, you start going down rabbit holes and you start researching because you're trying to understand what the hell is going on. You got a lot more time on your hands. You can't go out there and party as much. So now you ending up on the wrong side of YouTube or the wrong side of X or the wrong side of TikTok. And you start to become aware and you start listening a little bit more. You start becoming more informed. And so what people realize is that, listen, you're not going to sit here and smile and keep saying these same canned answers, Kamala Harris, in front of my face. We getting you up out of there. We are getting you. Did you see the people over in Chicago that's advocating for turning Chicago red? They not saying that because they just feel like it or they just woke up one day and wanted to be a part of the political establishment and switch over to being Republican. They're saying it because they're losing their homes. They're saying it because they see migrants coming in and taking over their cities. They're saying it because they see crime rampant in their communities and you're removing ShotSpotter while continuing to fund this migrant crisis to the tune of over $1 billion. When you don't have privilege, you tend to start paying attention to everything else that's going around you because you can't help it. You ain't got nothing better to do. You broke. When you got to go and you got to trade in them Fruit Loops for them Fruity Rings, when you don't got no box for your cereal and your kid is like, oh, mama, I'm hungry. And you got to go and apply for food stamps. You ain't never applied for food stamps. That junk hit your pride, hit your spirit. See, some of these people, they ain't never had to go and ask nobody for nothing. They ain't have to go and move back into their parents' basements. They went up and then they privileged as a result of it. And so they so far removed from it because they don't have the pulse of the American people. But when you ain't helping people, even when you get to a certain level in life, you still have to remain connected. You still got to remain focused. Why? Because you are removed. You do, and your cultural norms and the things that you do on a regular basis, it does not resonate anymore. And you've been desensitized to the things that's happening around you. So the only way that you can stay connected and have a pulse of what's going on in the streets is to participate in the streets. And that's why you have to give back. That's why you got to go do charity work. That's why you got to do give backs online and in person. That's why you got to go and hear people's stories so that you can then help them. That's why you have to have a crew and a community of people that's multicultural and it has all socioeconomic statuses to where you got to always be helping people at the bottom and the top and the middle. And that's how you stay connected, because in honesty, in truth, and people don't care about you having money. They care about you telling the truth. In honesty and in truth, once you get past a certain number per month and you do that and you sustain that for 2 to 3 years, it's over. You will never have the same cultural norms. You will never have the same ideas when it comes to money. You will never see things the same way as everything else unless you stay connected to the culture. And so Democrats don't know this. They think that it really matters about reproductive rights when you broke. It doesn't. And
we know that we can either channel this righteous rage, because there are people whose SNAP was cut off, their child tax credits were cut off, but they're seeing people like Elon Musk getting tax breaks and kissing up to Donald Trump in order to do so.
But they vote for, then why vote for Elon Musk and Donald Trump?
Because she don't know.
And I think that, of course, is the question.
It makes no sense.
They don't know. It don't make sense to y'all because y'all ain't reading the room and you don't know who these voters are. Let me tell you something. You know what the biggest reality check was for me? Was going and kicking it with white people. And I'm not talking about middle-class white people. I'm talking about white people on the fringes. Some of y'all ain't even familiar with that part of the internet, let alone real life. You go and kick it with white people in real life, let me tell you something. I was going to look at a property in a neighborhood around where I'll be building properties and stuff like that. And across the street from a property was a guy that I used to play poker with locally, right? And so we used to, they got these local poker halls or whatever. And so, you know, you get with the boys or whatever and y'all play poker and stuff. And so it's from people all in the city and locally and stuff like that. And so y'all get a local game going. The max buy-in is $200 to $300, no limit Texas Hold'em. And I hadn't seen him in a long time. And he recognized me and he said, "Oh man, I remember you. You used to play poker." And I had pulled up in my car, you know, and the car was big. It was a Porsche. It was the Taycan. He was like, "What you doing? I ain't seen you in a while. You ain't playing with the boys, you know." I said, "Y'all still over there playing at 300? And he said, "Yeah." I said, "Okay, all right. I'll have to stop by there one day." I wasn't going. I'm too busy. I wasn't going. And he said, I said, "So how you been doing? How's everything been going?" "Oh, man, you know, it's rough, laid off, just trying to figure it out. Trying to figure it out." I was like, "Trying to figure it out?" "Yeah, just trying to figure it out." And his home was small. You know, one of the conversations that Rita and I was having was if we can figure out how we can purchase all of the other homes that was around the one that we bought the property to build upon in order to continue to raise the values in the neighborhood. And his was one of the ones that we identified because it was a smaller home that we felt like it would be worth it to go over there and pitch them, wholesale them, ask them if they wanted to sell their home, tear it down, and then build a bigger one and put somebody in it. And so me and my wife as black people are over there gentrifying the neighborhood while taking advantage of this white man who was in his 50s, his late 40s, early 50s, talking about he's struggling. And you know what he had on his lawn? He had a Trump sign. Because he said the last 3.5 years had been the worst of his entire life. And so I didn't want to deep dive too much into it because, you know, it's kind of insensitive to be sitting there in a Porsche buying property and evaluating the neighborhood so you can make sure that you're buying it in the right place, while this 40 to 50-year-old white man is talking about how hard it is and how poor he is and how he ain't got no job and he laid off and he's trying to figure out what to do with his life. That's how you know. That's when it hit me like, you know what? These people are so out of touch, it's crazy. They don't know. They really think that them over here pandering is going to get them to vote for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. So out of touch.
Part of it has to do with the fact that, and I think we're still in a process of going through the data. It's important to say that.
Yes.
And I actually think that it's important to say that the people who are rushing to say, let me give you my grand theory of what's going on right now.
The problem is you went too woke. Sorry, Kamala Harris was running with Liz Cheney at her side. She wasn't going, quote unquote, woke.
If we had an election on November 5th and November 6th, you've got an answer.
Right.
Don't listen to those people.
Meanwhile, AOC got the poorest demographic of people in her particular district that she went in elections in.
Reid.
Do not listen to those people.
Cosign.
So I want to say that we should all have the humility of saying this is an ongoing learning process. However, there is something to be said about it doesn't matter that he's lying. He's saying that I'm fighting for you. In all of this debate that people are talking about with this woke thing, right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. It's because we care about trans people, and that's why.
And by the way, only Donald Trump cared about trans people because he was the one running $130 million worth of ads. The Harris campaign said nothing about this issue.
That's right. That's right. And listen, the ads, it's not to even deny the fact that these ads were effective in certain areas. What I think people are paying too much attention to is the first half of that ad, which says Kamala Harris is for they, them. Everyone's focusing on that. They're not focusing on the second half of that ad, where he said, Donald Trump is for you.
Yeah.
And Democrats very often, in their messaging, they speak in terms and in concepts and not in the second person. I care about you. And political races are not about one candidate versus another candidate. Too often it gets pigeonholed like that. It is a race to convince a person about who cares about you more.
Let me ask you this question, because we've been talking a lot about RFK Jr. My mind is a bit blown. I mean, we knew that Donald.
They're not reading the room, and they just don't understand, and they so disconnected. It's amazing.
Trump would go wild. There's no constraints on him. He could just put all his friends in. But we're talking about RFK Jr. and the possibility of people pulling back on measles vaccines, on another pandemic happening. You're talking about Matt Gaetz. There's a 17-year-old girl out there terrified that all of her records, all of the witnesses against him in this case where she was trafficked could be in the hands of Matt Gaetz, and he could be the most powerful law enforcement official in the country in a case where the president of the United States is an adjudicated sexual abuser. If you're a sexual assault survivor, you're thinking, oh my God, this country is out to get me. They're out to get me and force me to have children by sexual assault. So the message to women has been insane, okay? And the people he's nominating are TV hosts, et cetera. Do you think the people who voted for him that you've talked to were expecting this?
No.
Or true mass deportation?
Genuinely,
yeah.
No. And it's heartbreaking, actually. It is heartbreaking. And people may want to take like a kind of vengeful stance about this, but it is genuinely heartbreaking. People need to understand that there are people, millions of people in this country, and I was one of them, where you are working 2-3 shifts a day to try to make ends meet. You're not reading the newspaper every morning with a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
You're not. And it's not to say that people are uneducated or uninformed or anything like that. But like, this is real life. Yeah. This is real life. You got a baby on your hip and you've got 2-3 shifts to work in that day and you're just trying to make things work, and you have such an overwhelm of information. And
you know what they own TikTok and YouTube. They're watching me.
I actually think something that is different about this moment than I saw, whether it was 2020 or after 2016, is that almost like right the day after, people immediately were coming to me and saying, he's not actually going to do that, right? And it's important to say, people may often say, he said he was going to do this. It was right here on the campaign trail. If you actually listen to him, if you listen to Donald Trump's acceptance speech, when he talked about immigration, he talked about legal pathways first.
Yeah. He didn't say.
These people are so out of touch, and it's amazing. I don't even know how AOC is in office, and I don't know how Reid continue to have a job. It's crazy.